Well, we are not that far away from the family free fishing weekend coming up here in Alberta. And we also have to discuss another issue that's taking place out on the ice. I guess it was just before Christmas time that AAP Minister Jason Nixon came out with some announcements that revolve around registration of ice fishing shacks. And it's a real pleasure to welcome Caitlin Gifford to the program. She's a fisheries biologist located out of the Red Deer area. And Caitlin, I guess first off, why was it necessary, I guess, to bring out some regulations surrounding fishing shacks?
Certainly, yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Michael. So if you head out to any of our popular ice fishing lakes in Alberta right now, you'll see a large number of ice huts and ice shacks out there. They definitely make ice fishing much more enjoyable. Alberta has a pretty chilly winter, and ice huts make ice fishing quite a bit more enjoyable. So some anglers choose to set up their ice huts and leave them out on the ice for an extended period of time. While most ice fishermen are responsible and remove those ice shelters prior to ice breakup, there are every year a number of abandoned ice shelters that end up on our lakes. So this is a problem that happens almost every year. And if ice shelters are not removed before ice breakup, the debris can enter the lake. It results in litter, environmental degradation, also potential boating hazards. It can be a safety concern. So since 2006, Alberta Environment and Parks has been working with various municipalities, regional committees to combat this issue of abandoned ice shelters. But the reoccurring problem is that we have an inability to identify the responsible owner of the fishing shelters. So these new regulations provide some provincial consistency in how ice fishing shelters need to be labeled and when they need to be removed from the lakes as well prior to ice breakup.
So walk us through the process. If so, I'm interested. I want to go out on a lake, and I, like you said, I want to be comfortable. I want to enjoy, maybe spend a night or two in the shack. What are my responsibilities if I'm going to put a semi-permanent structure on the ice for the fishing season?
Yeah, it's actually really simple. So if you're planning on leaving your shelter on the ice for more than 24 hours, you just have to label your structure with ownership information. So you can label it with your name or phone number, your name and phone number, or with your wildlife identification number or your WIN number. So specifically, that labeling must be written in a contrasting color, and the text needs to be 2.5 centimeters or larger in order to be readable and quite visible. So for most people, this can be done with a Sharpie.
So in terms of the difference then between a shack that's built out of plywood versus an ice fishing tent. Normally, folks, I think, that go out on the ice with a tent are just there for the day. They take it down. But is a tent still required to have that kind of a registration?
Yes, it is. So if the structure is left out on the ice for more than 24 hours, it does need the labeling with ownership information, regardless of what it's made of.
And what would happen to a shelter if it does not have those labels on it, and Fish and Wildlife Enforcement or a conservation officer or someone like yourself from the parks area comes out and sees this? What would happen to it?
Certainly. So this is the first season that these regulations have rolled out. For last year, anglers were asked to label their shelters, so hopefully they heard some of that messaging last year. However, for this year, again, many anglers might not be aware of the regulations. So officers are knocking on doors and helping anglers be aware of these new rules, and I'm sure they have a Sharpie in their pocket and can help people label them on the spot as well.
In terms of this being an issue, I know Pigeon Lake, I think, was either Pigeon or Sylvan. I can't remember which, but it was a significant issue. When we get out to some of the other lakes, was it as big a problem?
Um, yes, so Sylvan had historically had a number of shacks left on the lake late into the season, and they were and shacks were required to be removed on a number of years. However, we do actually see this problem on other lakes throughout the province, maybe in less abundance, but it
Well,
happens. Yep.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's just it's again, it seems like we're legislating common sense here, but hey, unfortunately, that's the way of the beast. Folks sometimes just don't, I guess, think ahead and think of the circumstances. So I guess with the labeling, the structure being left onto the ice in the springtime, should that structure sink, break through the ice, it would be then the responsibility of that registered owner to what, pay for the removal or pay for any environmental damage, that type of thing.
Yeah, hopefully with these new labeling requirements, we can catch it before it gets to that point. So there are additionally new rules surrounding when ice structures need to be removed from lakes prior to ice breakup. And based on those dates, if structures are left on the ice past that date, the responsible owner can be contacted in order to have the structure removed. And so those dates are within Fisheries Management Zone PP1. Ice shelters need to be removed on or before March 15th. And if ice shelters are located elsewhere in the province within Fisheries Management Zones PP2, ES1 through 4, or NB1 through 4, ice shelters need to be removed on or before March 31st.
And is there a location that folks can go to, a website where that information is readily available for them?
Most definitely. On mywildalberta.ca, we have plenty of information on ice fishing, fish handling, as well as ice shack regulations that are new for this year.
Awesome. So, as I said off the top, another topic that we wanted to get into, Caitlin, was the family free fishing weekend. It has become a very popular event, and part of that popularity has revolved around the Alberta Conservation Association's Kids Can Catch event out at Wabman. But of course, this year, like last year, it had to be canceled because of the COVID situation. But nonetheless, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of families getting out onto the ice and getting involved with the weekend. What are some of the things that they should be bearing in mind as they get ready to go out and enjoy the weekend?
Yeah, so during family fishing weekend, no sport fishing license is required to fish in Alberta. So, family fishing weekend is upcoming. It's February 13th, 14th, and 15th. And while a license is not required to fish, all other sport fishing regulations still apply. So, anglers can go online and download a copy of the Alberta Guide to Sport Fishing Regulations, and they can learn about the rules for the water body they will be fishing at. It is also important to note that anglers can fish in Alberta outside of national parks and at water bodies with an open fishing season. So, water body fishing season and all those other regulations can be checked in the fishing regulations guide. Family fishing weekend is a great opportunity to get out of the house, especially in our current times. You can give fishing a try for the first time. You can take your kids out ice fishing. Personally, if you're like me, my ice fishing gear has sat in the basement for a few too many seasons. So I'm excited to take it out, brush it off, meet with some family on a lake, and have a fun day outside.
Over the last season, we have seen a pretty dramatic increase in the number of anglers that are coming out, and whether it's ice fishing or open water fishing, the numbers have gone up. I think partly due to the COVID situation. From a management perspective, what kind of a response do you have to that increase in angling pressure?
Yeah, so we definitely have seen an increase in fishing pressure in Alberta on our water bodies. In the last year, we've seen a 30% increase in resident fishing license sales over previous years. So that's a pretty big bump. It's great to see so many anglers getting out and fishing, either taking it up for the first time or maybe purchasing a license after not fishing for a few seasons. Um, the increase in fishing pressure can have impacts on our fish populations as well. So we do have reasons to be concerned when we see a significant increase in fishing pressure on our lakes and rivers. Fisheries managers will remain vigilant about this increase, and will continue to actively monitor water bodies as we have done in the past, and will respond accordingly if we need to.
But to this point, nothing has jumped out at you folks in terms of a concern.
No, not yet. No. So our fisheries management cycle is just that. It's a cycle where we monitor fish populations, and if we see changes that are concerning, we can adjust the fishing regulation and the management objective for those water bodies to correct and give some protection to those fish populations if the fishing pressure and harvest is too high.
And obviously, for folks that are going to be heading out on that family weekend, that family free fishing weekend, really important for them to, even though they don't have to buy a license, they should get a hold of some fishing regulations so at least they understand what the size limits are, all of that that goes around with the responsible angling practice.
Most definitely, yeah, yeah. So the fishing regulations, you can see what water bodies are open to angling, if there's any bait bans or other gear restrictions for those water bodies, and then what the catch and size limits are for fish species if you plan to try and take home dinner. There's also a bit of information there for fish identification, so you know what species you've caught and if it's eligible to be harvested.
Well, I know I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to let you get down into your basement and rummage around, find that ice fishing gear. Caitlin, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the family fishing weekend as well.
Thank you, Michael. You too.